Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Andrew Dahlberg. I am the president of Champion Briefs, and I'll be your host throughout this coaching clinic. We are so excited to welcome you for our 5 sessions today. This idea really was born from going through this pandemic, talking to a lot of new coaches, some veteran coaches who just were struggling to find new resources and ways to do things with their classroom, given the ways that we've had to kind of adjust our practices over the course of the last couple of years. So I want to thank Nathan Johnston for helping me put this whole thing together. Nathan is our Director of Community Engagement for Champion Briefs, and he's going to be giving the first presentation today on team communication. And I want to thank also all of our presenters who will be joining you throughout the day. We have about 150, a little bit more, coaches registered for the Coaches Clinic today, and I'm really looking forward to welcoming everyone. For this session, we have a little bit of a smaller group, but I think that people are going to come and go throughout the day. Please feel free to come and go as you please. The schedule is posted in the Zoom registration form, as well as in the emails that you've been receiving. So feel free to jump into any sessions that interest you and take a break if that's what you want to do, because I know for many of you, today is the first day of winter break. We don't want to interrupt that any more than we have to. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Nathan Johnston. But before that, just know that these sessions are being recorded and we'll be posting them afterwards. So if you want to go back and check anything, if you feel like you missed anything, if you wanted to catch a session but you weren't able to jump in, don't worry, they're going to be posted on our website sometime soon. So with that, Nathan, take it away for our first session on team communication.
Hi, everyone. Like Andrew said, we're really excited to have everybody here. As discussed, this was really born out of us saying things are changing rapidly in our activity, and whether that be for veteran coaches or people who are being coaches for the first time, there's a lot of resources that we've kind of trial and errored our way through over however long we've been coaching, especially over the last few years, doing the online speech and debate thing that we think are going to be really helpful as we transition out of the online speech and debate thing. So this was really born out of us wanting to share kind of a lot of what those resources are, ways that we can kind of give them to you all to be able to make your team operations a little bit easier, and kind of just let you know what is out there and what we have found. I think a lot of our conversations that we've had with coaches have been kind of born out of the idea that, people want to know about these new things, but honestly, a lot of times we just don't have a good starting point. And a lot of what this presentation in particular is going to be is going to try to give you some of that starting point of resources that we've worked our way through in terms of team communication, which is a lot of what I'm going to share with you all today. So let me share my screen. All right. So I kind of want to walk us through a couple of different tools that we use. So as Andrew said, I am the Director of Community Engagement for Champion Briefs, but I'm also the co-director of Speech and Debate at Lake Highland Prep down here in Orlando, Florida. So a lot of the resources that I'm going to show you are things that we use on our team right now, kind of their function, how you all can make them, adopt them into your team if you want, hopefully to be able to help you all organize a lot of the kind of mass communication that we have to do into some kind of centralized pillars to make things a little bit easier. So we're going to start off with kind of a basic one. We use Google Forms as a way to sign up for tournaments. These are really easy because through your school's learning management system, assuming you have a speech and debate team page, and we would encourage everyone who can to get their schools to have them make a speech and debate team page. So we have a team page. Our learning management system is Canvas, but some of you might be on Schoology or RenWeb or Blackbot or one of a billion other things. Most schools are able to create a page for you and be able to add your competitors to it. And it's through this page that kind of our central point of communication starts. And one of those places that it starts is with our roster signups. And here we have all of the tournaments that students are able to sign up for at this point. So we have national tournaments, local tournaments, and our It's Too Late, but we need to keep the forms around category. So These will ultimately redirect students to an individual Google form. These Google Forms are really helpful because at the top of them, we have all of the information that kids are going to need for the tournaments. It gives them the dates. It gives them the cost of the tournament. So parents are aware of cost of the tournament. It lets them know of sign-up deadlines. It lets them know of tournament dates. In the online world, most of these just say online. But as travel tournament starts to come back, this will also have information like links to the tournament schedule, when students are expected to be on a bus or when they're expected to be on a plane, or those types of itinerary information can also be contained in these forms as kind of another centralized way for people to find information. So our form is really easy. It just collects the student's email address, their first and last name, whether or not they plan to attend the tournament, their date of birth. This largely only applies to travel tournaments, specifically when we are on airplanes, so we can do TSA things, that type of stuff. It's also just kind of a secondary check to confirm that the student is who they say they are when they're filling out the form. Then we have them select what event they're signing up for. If it's a partner event, who is their partner? And then this gives them the ability to say, okay, well, I'm signing up for an interp event or oratory. I need to be in HIDI. I need to be in DXIX. I need to be in POI. This is also a way for students to kind of tell us where their heads are at in terms of whether they should be in a novice or a JV or a varsity division. Ultimately, these types of determinations are ultimately left up to the coaches, but this gives us some really good insight and information about kind of where kids think they are and what they're getting into. There's also a confirmation, like a parent confirmation, that they're aware of the information related to this tournament, billing, that type of stuff, as well as kind of an honor code check to say, I'm going to follow team rules while at the trip. So it's a really basic form, gathers some really basic information. But what we really like about this form is in responses, we see all the information here, but if you click this little green dot, we can open up a sheet where we've gathered students' information. On this sheet, what we're able to do is set up notification settings. In notification rules, we're able to send out, or I'm able to get an email anytime someone fills out a form, which is really, really helpful because a lot of times whenever we make these forms, we might do them a semester at a time or a month at a time. So whenever we add them to the roster page, it's kind of a set it and forget it type deal. But if you turn on the notification settings, so you get either a daily digest or a weekly digest, I prefer to get an email anytime a student fills out the form. It kind of becomes a nice constant reminder in the back of my mind that students are paying attention to the forms, that they're filling them out. And as they start to come in, hey, we're getting close to a deadline, those types of things. So Google Forms is a really nice way for us to handle student sign-up information. The other thing we use Google Forms for is our team commitment form. Now, this is something that all of our parents have to fill out at the beginning of the year. They get sent a link to this, as well as via Canvas, a link to our team handbook. That team handbook contains information about the events. It contains information about how captains are chosen. It contains information about what awards we give out at the end of the year. It also has team behavioral policies. It has individual section rules for things like practice. So our LDers meet separate from our PFers, meet separate from our speech people. So this gives people all of the information they need about the team. And then this information at the beginning of the year allows us to do some information gathering that is much easier done in mass at the beginning of the year than trying to do throughout the year. So if you were to look at this form, it comes in 7 different sections. The first is basic student information, their email addresses, their names, nicknames if they have them, their date of birth, as well as gender and grade. Again, this type of information is more important whenever we are flying because we gather this information for the purposes of booking airplane tickets. But it's good to have on hand. Then they're able to select an event so we can kind of sort them into who they need to be working with, gathers their email address. their phone numbers. This is one that we actually added this year to make our lives a lot easier. We always found that whether it be at the end of the first semester or sometime in the second semester, whenever we were gathering shirt sizes, we inevitably would miss someone or over under or order or under order or things like that. Gathering this information at the beginning of the year has been a really nice, really good lifesaver for us. So yeah, the first portion of this form is information gathering about the students. The second one is information gathering about the parents. This gathers their name, their email addresses, their phone numbers, their date of births, if they're willing to volunteer with the team. Are there specific things that they're interested in volunteering with, whether that be when we host tournaments or event coordinating or judge training or judge assignments or any of that type of stuff. We can gather a secondary parent information here. We also have an additional addendum where they can add additional guardians or things like that for people we should be working out to. A lot of this is information that you can get through your school's school management system or learning management system, but by putting it in this form, also we have a kind of a more direct route where we're able to get information about kids to be able to communicate with families relatively easily. Then we have kind of basic team operation stuff in this form, a behavior contract and agreement. So this is rules about the team that they kind of know. This is an abbreviated version of the rules that are actually in the book. It's a lot more extensive there, but a lot of this is us acknowledging that they have seen the rules, that their families have signed on to the rules, that the students have signed on to the rules. So this is a basic upfront acknowledgement that they're going to follow the team rules. The next part is a tournament commitment contract. This one basically says, when your students fill out the form, there is a confirmation that you have reviewed this form together, that you're going to look at the Slack announcements that we're going to talk about just a moment that shows tournament rosters, judge rosters, that type of stuff. This is kind of a front end of the year confirmation and acceptance of accepting fees that the students are going to incur over the course of the year. And then, of course, they reconfirm that on the individual sign-up form for a given tournament. Then we have a kind of judging option. A lot of schools do things similar to this. A lot of schools don't. So I'm just going to kind of tell you about what our model is. And then maybe when we get to the Q&A time, we can kind of discuss what other people's models are. One of the most difficult things about this activity is as a team grows, as does our judging obligation. And being able to get parents involved to judge or knowing who's going to judge or travel or any of that type of stuff is honestly kind of difficult. So we wanted to streamline this process a little bit, and we came up with what we call judging options. The first option is what we call a pointed option for people who are going to either be judging or volunteering. Basically, the way it works is that if you judge a day, let's say at our local tournaments where the rounds start at 9 a.m. and we go to about 4, you would earn a single point. We also have some Wednesday after school tournaments that are about 2 rounds. If you judge that, you get half a point. If you come with us to a travel tournament or you're on a multi-day online tournament, you get 1 point per day. So for our parents, we expect parents who are going to be contributing in terms of judging to acquire 8 points over the course of the year. And they can do that through any combination of that judging we talked about. They also can do it by doing things like volunteering to be chaperones. Maybe we've got enough judges on a tournament, but we want some more adult chaperones. They're able to sign up that way. Then we have a secondary option where parents are able to pay a fee that the team then collects so we can use it for judge fees for unfilled spots at tournaments, or to be able to hire former students, adjunct coaches, those types of things to be able to fill those judging obligation spots. As we all know, the larger a team becomes, part of the things that's really important about having judges is not only that they fill your judge obligation for the tournament, but they also give you additional people to be able to be chaperones and help you keep up with the kids. We really emphasize to parents that we would much rather have you come judge than we would the money, right? So we really try and encourage people to get into this option A. The other thing that happens with option A is they have the ability throughout the year to gather these points. Now, let's say they only get 6 of their 8 points, so they don't fill their full obligation. They can then at the end of the year be charged a prorated amount based on how much they actually did judge, unless they signed up for option A and then did not judge at all, in which case there's a punitive fine. Instead of paying the initial amount of money, they pay an additional amount of money. Again, this is something that we found kind of works well for us. And the option B is kind of a nice active deterrent. That is a lot of money. And we found it's really successful in helping us get parents give us a little bit more of their time to be able to come and judge and help us out. So parents are able to select their options here. Then we have an administrative fee and a spirit pack fee that we call it, or our booster fee. These cover a lot of basic things like team operation money, their NSDA memberships, our league dues. It also ends up covering most of our local tournament league fees. So they end up kind of not having to pay whenever we go to local tournaments and that type of stuff. The other thing that this booster fee does is it pays upfront for hoodies, t-shirts, that type of stuff. In the online world, snacks at tournaments, those types of things. So this is just an agreement to pay that fee, and we bill all this information to students at the beginning of the year. And then last but not least, we have a Slack waiver form. We're going to talk about Slack as a communication form in a moment. Mostly what this waiver form says is, we're acknowledging terms of services for Slack. We're also saying that the school has implemented some rules about being on it, needing a waiver, et cetera. So this is just a confirmation of that. So yeah, this form really has kind of been born out of a lot of years of us thinking about information we need from students and kind of giving us ways that we can communicate with people a little bit better. So through gathering this information, we're able to do a couple of things. The first thing is make our school Slack channel that I'm going to show you in just a moment, and also have some more direct lines of communication with parents. So from those sign-up fees, like I said, hopefully you're able to get a school page in whatever your learning management system is. For us, most of our information is either on the homepage, where we have access to things like a calendar. The team practice schedule is posted for all of the events, so you can see who practices when and where. Itineraries is where we post travel plans, that type of stuff. The most important thing we really use here is announcements. This gives us the ability to blast out, these are people who are going to these tournaments. These are parents that have judged it. The way our announcement system is set up, every family who is part of the Slack page or the Canvas page, which is everyone that's on the team, they get an email as soon as an announcement is sent. So we fill out these forms, send it out. Everyone gets a blast as long as parents are reading them. It says, look over these entries, make sure that you're good. Here's a last drop deadline before you incur fees, that type of information. It gives a really open stream of communication between parents. They can respond directly to these, which is really nice. So that's kind of what our communication looks like through Canvas. But the truth of the matter is most of our team communication happens through an app called Slack. Slack is kind of something that really started in the business world, and schools are starting to adopt it. Our Slack channel allows us to have all the students here. And in having all the students here, we're able to make different channels for different students. So because I own the Slack channel and am the teacher and all that good stuff, I have access to all of the channels. One of the really nice things about Slack is that you're able to make categories and then sort channels by categories. So we put tournaments, or we put, tournament Slacks into tournaments. We put things specific to speech in the speech category, a coaches category, a general category, a PF, LD, Congress, etc. There's a lot of functionality we really like here. So for example, in a tournament Slack, like this one is about Berkeley next spring, we're able to do things like post schedules. We're able to post rosters so students know who signed up for the tournament. This is also what we use when we are at tournaments. So in the online world, if everyone is at home competing from their houses, this is a good way for us to be able to check in with people between rounds. It also gives us this thing called the huddle. You see these little headphones down here. I can start a huddle in a given Slack channel, which then is kind of like an audio call. And everyone that is in that Slack channel can jump into that audio call, which we found is really helpful for coaching during tournaments. Whenever students are maybe competing from their homes, we can say, hey, after round 2 of PF, everybody let's hop in the huddle, talk about arguments, see if you have any questions, that type of stuff, and then they can go back to their rounds, which is really nice. The other nice thing is that you can use the huddle to call students or call parents at tournaments. So, one of the things we really like about Slack is it's a bit more transparent than, say, using your personal phone number, using your text messages, right? In a lot of ways, it provides us some protection because at any given time, it'll show us who's in a huddle. People can join huddles that are outside of the huddles, right? So it gives us a little bit more oversight and gives us a little more accountability and transparency whenever we are at tournaments. So Slack is really helpful in that regard. And then if we're at tournaments, we're able to say things like, hey, everyone be on the bus at 9 p.m. or whatever. And then we can just blast that information out to everyone that's in a given channel, which becomes a really nice way for us to have team communication. And we do basically everything. We have some students who some of their captainship jobs is to be in charge of the Instagram. So we have a way to work on that. We have t-shirt design. Let's say some kids in LD are debating a topic that the PFers just did. We have a resource sharing channel. And then of course the individual channels. The other really nice thing is that you're able to direct message people to be able to find whatever information you want. A couple other kind of small functionality things that I really like about Slack. The first is that you're able to schedule send messages. So I, for example, really like to send a Friday announcements. This Friday announcements has, here are some tournaments that you need to sign up for. These hyperlinks will take them to the Google Forms, and you can make those hyperlinks really easily in the Slack channel, right? So these are some basic reminders of stuff that's going on. And I kind of do these on Fridays and then tend to do them on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, depending on what sign up deadlines are. But I don't want to have to write these out on Friday afternoon. And what if I forget things over the course of the week? So I can make a Friday announcements message on whatever day of the week I want, start working on this, and then I can use this little arrow down here to schedule send that message. And I can say, so for me, these go out every 2:30 at 2:30 every Friday. So I'm able to kind of work on this over the course of the week. And by the time we get to the end of the week, they get their blast and it has all of the relevant information that they need. So this is a really good way for us to kind of maintain lots of internal communication. These Slack channels, it's Christmas break right now, so we don't have a lot of activity, but during the school year, these are normally pretty active. We see lots of students communicating, lots of coaches communicating with students. So this is really, really helpful. And I would encourage people to use it. The other nice thing is this is our student Slack channel. It is integrated with a parent Slack channel. This parent Slack channel allows us to do things like communicate with parents who are judging a given tournament. This is also where we have parents sign up to judge a given tournament, also using the same Google Forms, but for parents to sign up and judge. Sorry, saw a chat message. So yeah, this is integrated with our other Slack through this thing called Slack Connect. And so, for example, I can post important announcements in general here, and then I can tell Slack that it should also go to the parent general channel, right? So it becomes a nice, easy way to have parent communication in one place, student communication in another place. So the important question, why do the parents have their own channel and the students don't have their own channel? Or the students have a separate channel? The main reason is because parents have very different questions than students do. And so like if we're at a tournament, the questions that parents might ask don't really apply to things that student information needs. So we kind of have to keep them separate just to make sure that things are, staying clean the way we need them to. So if you like Slack, It's really simple to make a Slack channel. All you have to do is go to slack.com and say, create a workspace. And then once you have, let me see if I can, I don't know if I go to Slack right now. Yeah, so we can just create a new workspace. And then from here, you're able to have access to the app. The app is free. Anyone can download it. Yeah, so, and then let's say you want to make a channel in Slack, also very easy. You just scroll down here to channels, you click a plus, you can either browse channels that exist or create a new channel. Once you have made the choice about what you want to do, oh, sorry, give me 2 seconds. Sorry, a cat bumped my microphone USB or my webcam from being plugged in. Okay, so you can make a channel by simply clicking the plus, and you can either browse a channel or you can create a channel. Once you have created a channel, you can just right click on them and sort them either alphabetically or create a new section. You can add them to different sections. The same thing is true for direct messages. Just to make a direct message, all you have to do is click the little plus sign and you'll have access to all of the people in the channel. You invite everyone via email address. So once you make your Slack channel, you would just put in the email addresses of everyone. They get an invite directly to their email. They then join the Slack channel. And then once they're in the Slack channels, you're able to just pick everyone is automatically added to general, but let's say you need to add people to your speech team or whatever. You can just click this little thing up here, add people. So it's really easy. You can start calls in here, etc. So yeah, we think this is a really, really helpful communication platform for teams. It makes lots of things more accessible, easier to get a hold of people. The other really nice thing about it is because there's an app and everyone can have them on their phones, we find that it's a little bit more effective in getting people to respond to messages, particularly ones that are a bit more urgent since they get notifications on their phone. We also find that students and parents alike whenever they can just message you directly. The other really nice thing about Slack is that you're able to set parameters for what hours you want to receive notifications. So, we don't want parents to be able to instant message us at all hours. So you can say, I'm available for notifications from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or whatever. And the other nice thing that comes along with that is whenever we're at tournaments, right? So kids, we're looking for them at 11 p.m. doing room check and those types of things. You can turn off those notifications for certain time windows so people will be able to contact you at any time. Now, our Slack channel is very robust, but a lot of that has to do with the size of our team. As you can see up here, there are over 130 people in our Slack channel. This is students, adults, coaches who are in charge, those types of things. Ours is really big, which leads to a lot of channels. Yours may be a lot more simple than that, and that's totally fine. A lot of schools, for example, may just have a general and then use tournaments or whatever, right? This is very customizable and you can kind of do whatever you want with it. The other thing that students really like is you see these little emojis right here. You are able to upload custom emojis. So a lot of them will do pictures of their pets or things like that. So having, kind of those customized emojis is really nice. The last thing I want to say about Slack is that if you do have a very large team, there is a paid version of Slack. The paid version of Slack is called Slack Enterprise, and generally speaking, it's really expensive. It's about $20 per person per month. So you can see with a team of that size, that would get very expensive. However, Slack Enterprise has an education avenue underneath it. And instead of paying $20 a month, you can apply as a school or as a school organization to be able to use Slack Enterprise for a reduced fee. In our case, we applied and we ended up paying about $1.90 per person in the Slack channel per month. So one of the things that is built into the administrative fees that we charge students at the beginning of the year is the ability for us to have this big kind of robust Slack channel that gives us some other really nice functionality. The functions that come with the paid version are I'm able to download all of the messages that are sent in Slack, including personal messages. You know, we're not here to be big brother in the eye in the sky, and I don't have the ability to just look into someone's communication. But what I do have the ability is to have some accountability and tell Slack, hey, I need to download all of the messages sent during the month of August. And then, you know, have the ability to go through those messages should that become something necessary. You know, luckily it's something we haven't had to do really, but there's a lot of accountability and kind of head clearing in knowing that that option does exist. The other thing that comes with the paid version is you get unlimited messages, so it doesn't delete your messages over time. If you have the free version, there's a 10,000 message cap. So things that fall out of the 10,000 messages get deleted. And then we get unlimited file sharing. So like the size of the file can be however big we want. It also gives us kind of like a Dropbox file saving option. And we are able to video call via Skype and through the huddle. Where we otherwise wouldn't be able to do that. So yeah, Slack is a really great communication system for internal team communications as well as parent team communications. You know, I think that our real goal as coaches is to get information out as quickly and as clearly as possible in between our Canvas page and our Slack channels, where everything is kind of integrated, right? The links will take you to Canvas or to the forms. The forms are also on Canvas, which will, you know, everything is really closely tied together for us. It creates a really kind of cohesive communication model where people are able to get information about as quickly as they need and can ask questions and get information that they might be struggling to find in a given place. Yeah, so Slack is really good. We know that there are other communication platforms that people use. For example, some schools have started to use Discord. We experimented with Discord for a little while. There were a couple things we didn't really like. The first is that the direct messaging system is not self-contained to your workspace. So for example, if a student has Discord, they join Discord, they join your school's channel or whatever. But that means they can also join a whole bunch of other channels, right? Maybe they're really into a particular video game or they're in a bunch of other clubs that also have Discords. Those all would be kind of individual things that they're part of. But then the group messaging is a lot more difficult to make group messages of people in a given Slack channel because they have to be friends with everyone. Rather than in here, you can just message anyone that you want. So we think that in that regard, the private messaging regard, this is a bit easier than Discord. The other thing is that kids do use Discord for things like video games and social groups and that type of stuff. And we found that our notifications were getting buried a little bit when we were using Discord. Other schools also use things like Remind. Again, you just got to kind of figure out what your school is comfortable with, what communication platforms they would like you to be on. That's why we have our Slack waiver on the agreement form at the beginning of the year from the school, and make sure that, you know, they know the school rules related to these types of platforms. The school is aware that we're using this platform, et cetera. Yeah. So this is kind of some basic communication stuff that we use that we kind of want to give you all as resources to be able to use, and open it up for questions should you have any, or if you want to see any of the other stuff that we have. Feel free to message questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you, and you can just ask a question verbally. And if we don't have any questions, Andrew, would you like to give them a little bit bigger of a break between this session and the next session?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I want to go over just by mentioning a few different tools that we've also seen a lot of teams use. There are, Slack, as Nathan said, really is a tool that we've seen a lot of teams have success with. I use Slack, as you can see actually in the corner of Nathan's Slack page. We use Slack internally for the Champion Brief staff. I use Slack in my my other profession that I kind of do on the side, and it's just a very good tool for companies, for teams, all of that. But if you don't want to go into the full Slack route, if you want to kind of jump into smaller tools that don't seem this large of a scale, that don't take this level of organization, you want something more casual, there are tools like Remind, which I know a lot of schools have used. That's a direct text messaging tool. You can create groups within your Remind channel. As in, if you have a group of students that's going to a tournament, you can put them into Remind and send a blast text message out. And Glenn, I see that you use Remind. That's really great. It's an awesome tool. There are also just ways that you can incorporate some different technologies into your team to allow for better communication. And just as Nathan had a cat knocking out his video feed, I have a 4-month-old puppy at my feet who is whining. So I'm so sorry if you hear that in the background. Nathan had showed you his team website up here. At Champion Briefs, we actually used to have a tool called My Debate Team, and it was a lot of the tools that schools now use that are integrated into their school site. What we like to highlight is that the best way for you to stay organized and keep communication going as a team is to put information out there, have it organized. And that would be information about tournaments. So as Nathan showed you, have team sign-up forms, have information about where teams are going, have information about doing different practice sessions, how to work with coaches, how to get all in contact with all those folks. Because not only will students use that, but parents always appreciate the opportunity to just connect directly with folks and to know exactly where that information is going to be housed for each of their classes, for each of their coaches, however you have your team set up. The other thing that you may want to have is just helpful links out there for how students can get more resources. The NSDA has a lot of different resources available on their website, most of them for free. But a lot of students, and especially parents, don't always know how to access those resources. So if you have a team website, just having links to those different pages is an easy way to keep teams connected to those resources that they can use. I do see that we have a few questions coming up in the chat. So Nathan, why don't you kind of answer a couple of these? And then we'll move to a break in just a few minutes.
Okay. So let's start with the one about that Remind's the only app approved by your district. When we started or were investigating Slack wasn't allowed by our school either. So we kind of had to go through a process in which we kind of looked through some terms of services and some other, functionality things related to the app and kind of went through a process to get it approved. I'm not sure if your school districts have the same thing where you can kind of go through a process of getting it approved. But if you can, it's a really great tool. Like I said, I've never used Remind. Remind is really good for kind of mass blasting information. One thing we really like about Slack is the kind of two-way part of communication that comes with it, or group messaging, those types of things. So if you are able to get your school district to allow you to have something like Slack, I would really encourage it. The second thing is how much do we pay for adjunct coaches or judges? Sorry. It ends up depending on what they're really doing for us. Most of the time, the tournament fee to judge or whatever is like $125 a judge, or, depends on the tournament really. We end up paying about $100 a day. So if it's a 1-day tournament, $100. If it's a 3-day tournament, same thing. And that money comes out of that money that we collect at the beginning of the year, whether that be through the $600 that parents are paying to opt out of judging. So that's part of the pool. The other part of the pool is money from that administrative fee that we showed you, also creates part of our pool for paying adjunct judges. So yeah, that's where the money comes from. We end up paying about $100 a day.
And Nathan, can you also talk about any ways that you stay connected with alumni from your school in order to bring them in as judges? And have them help out with your students, all of that. Just how do you stay in touch with alumni? Can you use these same tools?
Yeah. So one of the nice things about Slack is because it's not tied to your school and their email addresses or those types of things, you're able to keep people in here. So if you notice, whenever I showed you tournaments, it says Berkeley 2021, or it might say CFL 4 2021. The reason we do that is because Slack is kind of a rolling thing. We can go back and find CFL number 4 2019, CFL 3 2016, right? So we have all of the people in one place. And what we do is whenever students graduate, we roll them over to an alumni Slack channel. And in the alumni Slack channel, we're able to communicate, recruit people for judging, those types of things. We find that most of the kids who do this activity really love it during their time in high school, and especially during their college years are willing to give us their time back. But, we have people who graduated in 2005, 2008, 2003, who are still involved with the program and come back and judge, or, people even farther back who now have kids who are competing in the program, they stay involved as well. So being able to roll people out of our regular Slack channel, and since they are all already trained to be on Slack in the first place, it's a really easy kind of seamless rollover to put them in an alumni Slack channel as well.
Yeah, and that's a great tool. And for those schools that aren't going to use Slack or you can't use Slack, what I've seen work actually for staying in touch with alumni, and I know this may be changing because certain generations don't use Facebook as much, but creating Facebook groups with your alumni, not current students, because I know that that's really a no-no when using social media in that way with current students, but connecting with alumni in that way, keeping them in one place and being able to give them both updates about your team, where you could just shoot a message into the group and say, we had these successes at tournaments. We've been able to grow our team. This is how many students we have. Just keeping them connected is a great way to make them kind of feel like they have a home with the team. It's also a really easy way that if you have a tournament coming up and you're looking for some extra judges, you can jump into there and make requests in that way. I also used to keep just a giant spreadsheet of every student that came through my school, so that I could kind of park all of their information for alumni in one place, be able to message them, send out blast emails, anything like that, if I really needed to get in touch with folks to either ask for judges or to send out something like a newsletter, type up a few paragraphs and send that out to folks. I know it's not really a communication tool, but a communication method would be something like a newsletter for your team. What I've seen be extremely successful is to just send out short messages to the parents and the students on your team about what the team was able to do at tournaments, about what you're seeing kind of out there in the speech and debate community, opportunities that may be coming up for your team. Those are the kinds of things that allow your team to go from feeling just like a club at the school to really like a family. You want the students to feel like they have a home with your team, that they're well connected, that they know what's going on. And you especially want the parents to know that information as well. You know this far better than I do, because I'm sure you've seen it 1,000 times in your classrooms. But when you have informed parents, they are much more willing to not only lend a helping hand to your team, but also to cause you a little bit less strife in reaching out with questions and comments and all of that about what's going on with the team. When you have an activity like speech and debate, where a lot of the time you're stepping out of the school environment with students, parents can get finicky. And so just providing them with as much information as possible, keeping those channels open, is a really great way to keep them feeling involved and keep them calm, which is just going to make you happier as the teacher and coach that's dealing with all that. So that's just a quick tip about, other communication methods that you might be able to try, just creating those Facebook groups, creating newsletters, any other methods of information that you can send out to teachers.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's really nice about something like a Slack channel. As an example, let's say a bus gets delayed or an airplane gets delayed or the tournament's running behind schedule for X, Y, or Z reason. It's really easy if you have all of your parents in one central location to be able to blast out, hey, we're going to be at an hour later, 30 minutes later than we expected, right? One of the things that's really nice about this form of communication is that it does give us a bit more urgency than something like email would. And it makes, as Andrew was just saying, them feel a little bit more at ease. Not I feel less worried about over communicating in a world where I have something like Slack, because there's always a digital record. So they can kind of go through and scroll through information. You don't really have to worry about things getting lost in the weeds, so to speak, because it doesn't go anywhere, right? If you worry about an email account where maybe an email gets buried by a ton of other emails, that doesn't really happen in Slack, right? Let's say a student knows they need a Friday afternoon announcement from me. They can just search in the search channel Friday announcements, and then they'll have all of them there, right? So it gives us a really nice way to communicate information early and often in a way that doesn't feel cumbersome, like maybe losing emails or those types of things does. Yeah, any other questions?
And you can also raise your hand in Zoom, and we can unmute you if you'd rather ask a question that way. All right, last call for questions. All right, seeing no questions, we have a little bit more or a little bit longer than a break than expected. So we're going to reconvene at 10:30 to talk about online tips and tricks. That's going to be a session with Ali Hebrants. She's going to be talking about the ways that your coaching can kind of change in the online world, as well as ways that you can help students to better prepare for online tournaments. She'll talk about what to do when you have to troubleshoot technology issues, how to help the students kind of adjust their performances or their debates for that online environment, given that a lot of things have to change when you're really getting in front of a camera instead of in a room with a judge, and everything else that you as a coach need to know and you can help your students with when it comes to online speech and debate. So we will see you back here at 10:30. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. If you're not coming to the next session, we hope to see you at some point throughout the day. See you all soon.